Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Monday, September 25th. We're going to take an updated look at AVTX. AVTX pumping today, up over 36%. We see how nicely it obeyed the levels that we had on the chart, even on such an incredibly pump-worthy day. So it was coming in. We had this little gap here in the pre-market. It never quite filled it. See, this big candle didn't quite come down and fill that gap, so something to just note. But came in, it was sort of wrestling with this 13 level, dipped down quite a bit into open, but ultimately pushed through that 1460. Made a run, tried to skip a bunch of levels, came down. What we commonly see when it tries to skip a bunch of levels is it come down and corrects itself and confirms if it's going to continue in that direction. Came down and confirmed the levels here as support, came up and basically built a little floor here, lost it, reconfirmed, sort of a intraday double bottom, if you will, right here. And then nice motion. So really strong support at the moment over that 1460 level. Probably more so the $14 psychological level as it gets really close in with these wicks, right? It's not quite down to the 1396, which is very close to 14. It's a little bit below 1460, so probably sort of that psychological $14 level is at play with these wicks, I would guess. But in any case, showing for the moment at least, wanting to hold really strong support over 14 cents. Now building a rebasing here. Coming up, it already had put in a bunch of price action there, so kind of flew through it this time and really made a run. Came within two 10,000ths, if I'm doing that right, of a penny to the resistance level that we had, 1748 we had. It got to 1750, wicked right off of it, came all the way down a level, 1698, basically 17 cents, and then was continuing to base over this 1588 level into close. So I'm always really happy when something respects the levels that we have had on the chart for days or weeks, but I'm especially happy when something goes through a tremendous move, up or down, like this, and it still respects the levels really, really well. So I'm incredibly happy with that. Now this got me thinking today that I don't think that we've really called out this gap. So we have a gap that starts here. What's the low of this day? 2035. I'm going to put this in the chart. 2035. It won't quite let me do it. Let me see if it'll let me pin it here if I do it this way. There we go. So this will almost be imperceivable until we get there. We have this gap that comes down to this candle. This day was down a little over 38%. So we really have quite the wild swings here. This day was down. This is just down 3%, apparently. That's what that entire candle entails. So in any case, this gap starts at the top of this, which we already have. So I'm going to put that in purple, which is typically what I do when I say this is a gap level, meaning there's a gap here, but also this is a support or resistance level that I would have on the chart anyway, whether it was a gap or not. And this basically imperceivable grayish is just if it's a gap. So it's not particularly a support or resistance level that I see at the moment, but it would suffice for filling the gap. So if it gets up through 2035, then that could be something. But first we have to make this push to 1815. So just a heads up that if in the coming days or weeks or whatever, it pushes through 1815, that will have entered this gap. And then it may proceed toward the gap fill. Don't know, doesn't have to. They often do, but just something to keep an eye on. Even if it does, sort of mid-range of that gap, 1933, we have a resistance level in there. So it would still have to sort of interplay with that. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. I know we do have an uptrend here. I'm not going to worry about putting it in yet. I'd like to see a few more candles get put in, but really nice volume coming in the last couple of days, up 16% here, and then obviously today up over 36. So really nice to see the volume coming in. Obviously reminds us of what we saw back here. This had also left a gap that was subsequently filled. So there is still a gap down here that's not quite filled down to 919, but you never know. That might have sufficed. I don't know. Obviously, it didn't come down to fill the rest of it, even though it was that close. So take that for what you will. But that's what I'm looking at the moment. If this continues, we'll put in an uptrend line, and that'll give us a bunch of nice potentials for flat topping out, which is one of my favorite setups. Now flipping over to the think or swim study. Now just keep in mind we're looking at this on the daily, and then when we zoomed in intraday, we were looking at the 10 minutes. Those are just my preferred time frames. Here on the think or swim study, we're looking at the 1 hour time frame. So just keep that in mind. Now obviously from today's push, we're getting up here and just riding this green wave, which is what you want to see when something's exhibiting, a lot of strength. It's riding this green wave, and it's batting itself between the green wave and the upper bound of the channel, which is also nice because it may not be putting in such a crazy out of the channel move. It's not having a bunch of candles up here out of the channel where you'd really start to look for it to pull back strong toward the mid-range of the channel. This bright blue line right here, currently situated at 1443, which would be quite a retracement percentage-wise. So it's not doing that. It sort of fell short of even testing the mid-range here at open. And then, like I said, it just rode the wave all day for each of the candles and continued sort of in the later half of the day to ride the wave even stronger as support. So maybe that's indicative of more juice to be squeezed out of this move. I don't know. We do see on the last candle here, though this is in after hours, sort of a receding bullish momentum, but that may not amount to much of anything. We'll have to wait and see, just because the volume being what it is after market close could be sort of adversely affecting that and sort of giving a false reading. So we'll know better when we head into open tomorrow. But we do see a really strong signal here, TTM squeeze indicator, showing before market open today it was triggering for 6 candles, and then when it fired, that was the move, man. It fired, it went from about 14 all the way up to the high today, over 17. So really strong indication there on the TTM squeeze indicator. And so, you got to be happy with that if you're playing the TTM squeeze indicator. Yeah, so we'll see. See if it'll continue to ride the cloud at some point. I would expect it to test the mid-range of the channel, but it's always a guessing game as to when is that going to happen. Sort of a clear indication can be it's popping out of the channel. Then we look for maybe a strong pullback, or it stops riding this green wave and starts sort of nudging itself closer and closer toward the mid-range of the channel. That might be sort of a tip-off of, okay, maybe the bulls are sort of like tiring themselves out a little bit here, and it's going to need to pull back to get into a nice sort of perceived buying range for more bulls to come in and kind of press it the next go. But yeah, that's sort of TBD. But nice to see this volume. It at least gives it really interesting plays. There's certainly a bunch of opportunities intraday to pick up really large percentage swings, if you were also considering playing it that way, because the volume's pumping and the price is pumping, and it's seen it in both directions. As we see here, like I said, this day was down 38%. So take that as an example. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week got off to a good start today. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.